So with the All Blacks England series just around the corner, I decided why not do an All Blacks XV. Who are the players that I would put in the starting lineup? Now, of course, my squad prediction was a little bit rough, so I don't expect this to be any better, but do, of course, let me know who you would have in your starting 15 for the All Blacks in this upcoming series, but we will start with the front row. Now, this is quite a tricky one, as there are so many props at the moment who are in great form, and there's also 6 of them in the All Blacks squad, so that does mean that, unfortunately, only 2 of them can make it into our starting XV here, and I have gone with number 1, Ofa Tuangafasi, number 2, Cody Taylor, and number 3, Tyrell Lomax. So I haven't gone with that same combination that they went with last year of Ethan de Groot and Tyrell Lomax, even though that combination I'm sure would get the job done and more than likely will be the combination that the All Blacks do go with. Feel like Ofa Tuangafasi, he's done extremely well throughout the season for the Blues. He scored himself 6 tries, which really wasn't expected at the start of the season. So that is why I've given him that number 1 jersey. I think he's really improved throughout the season. So that is why I reward him with a starting spot. For the ABs, Cody Taylor, I feel like that experience in the front row will be extremely handy up against the English. And having him for his line-out accuracy, even though at times throughout the back end of Super Rugby Pacific, the line-out for the Crusaders wasn't really functioning the way we would expect, but Cody Taylor, I feel like with that experience, he's got to be somewhere near that starting lineup, so that would mean having more than likely a Safa Moore as the man who does come off the bench, and then Tyrell Lomax, I feel like his work over the last 12 or 24 months speaks for itself. He has improved drastically, and he just continues to be a very dangerous front row option in the locking duo. Now, this is quite tricky to pick 2 locks here, because we've got a captain who can play number 4. We've also got someone who had a tremendous Super Rugby Pacific final in that number 4 jersey. Both of them playing more 4 than 5 this year. But I think for the All Blacks, they may consider switching it a little bit. So that is why I've gone number 4, Scott Barrett, and number 5, Patrick Tuipulotu. Now, Barrett's only played 6 games throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season, so he'll be relatively fresh. He's had a couple injuries to deal with, but he is the All Blacks captain, so I believe he will be somewhere in that starting side. But Patrick Tuipulotu, the season that he had throughout Super Rugby Pacific, he was absolutely phenomenal. He had an injury himself, but he came back from it, almost looked like he was going to have another injury that kept him out of the final. But somehow that man played, and throughout that game had some incredible stats to his name. But throughout the season, he has had 290 metres carried. He's beaten 12 defenders. He's had 106 carries, he's scored 2 tries, and he's just been a very solid option for the Blues. Now, early on in the season, I was a bit concerned about his handling, but it seems like as the season has progressed, his handling has got a lot better, and he also hardly gives away any penalties, which I think will be hugely beneficial for the All Blacks, mainly with who I've gone with as my number 6 here, so we will jump into that loose forward trio. Number 6, I did go with Samipeni Finau. Now, that man has been known to play very aggressively. Sometimes that can lead to him getting certain cards, which I don't think the All Blacks will want, but then saying that, they put Luke Jacobson in the squad, who has given away 23 penalties throughout the regular season, so I don't think the penalty count was one of the main stats that the selectors were looking at. But Finau, he's got great size. I feel like up against England, that is exactly what you need. Someone in that loose forward trio who is a unit and can run forward and also run down the wing. He's very handy there for the Chiefs, but he's had 313 metres carried throughout the season, 8 defenders beaten, 5 clean breaks, and also has 2 try assists to his name as well. So I would definitely consider him as that 6 option. I think there are other options for 6 that I could easily see them going with. It's probably Ethan Blackadder at that blindside flanker role, and maybe even you could say Luke Jacobson would be the other 6 that they've got available for these matches. So it does really depend on the game plan that the All Blacks want to go with. But for myself, I would go with Samipeni Finau in that number 7 jersey. I would give it to Dalton Papali'i. Now, there are a few great options that the All Blacks could have gone with at 7. Dalton Papali'i's had a standout season for the Blues. His tackling numbers are extremely impressive. 208 tackles made throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season, and he's been tackling at a 95% rate. And I feel like that is something that definitely bumped him up in my books a little bit higher than maybe some of the other 7 options that they could have gone with, such as once again an Ethan Blackadder. Could have gone with Savia. I think that Sotutu not making the team though was a pretty clear indication that Savia more than likely will be playing number 8 alongside Wallace Satiti. So that is why I've gone with Papali'i as my number 7. And then number 8, I have gone with him, one of the vice captains, that being Ardie Savia. He's been playing in Japan, should be fresh coming back into the series. He's been playing a little bit of club rugby as well, just getting some minutes under his belt before getting into that All Blacks jersey. And I feel like he'll do extremely well in that number 8 jersey, just because the work rate of that man, anytime he's out there on the field for the All Blacks, you always see him getting into the breakdowns, trying to create some sort of opportunity for the ABs. So that is why I'd have him there in that loose forward trio. But moving on to the back line, this is where it gets extremely tricky, because even though they've only got 14 backs that we can select in the starting XV, I still probably have a lot of switches compared to what some people would have in their back line. So number 9, starting up against England, for me, I would actually go TJ Perenara. Now, I feel like that is an unpopular opinion. They have got Finlay Christie, they have got Cortez Ratima as the other 2 options. But I do believe that TJ can get you off to a good start up against the English. Perhaps they might look at it the other way. They'll go with one of the younger guys in that starting lineup and then have TJ off the bench just to add that experience and a little bit of, I was going to say a calm head, but that man gets fired up throughout a game and can normally annoy a referee within a few minutes. But I probably would start him anyway, just to go with that kicking battle that we might see from the English. Also throughout the season in Super Rugby, originally he wasn't really going to be expected to play too many minutes, but that injury of Cam Roigard meant he got chucked into that starting lineup, and from there, 7 tries for TJ, 9 try assists, 11 offloads, 11 defenders beaten. He's had a good season. I just know that he is a little bit similar to Caleb Clark in the fact that some people just really don't like to give him his credit. But then also at the same time, when you do see him yapping like a chihuahua to the referee, that makes it very easy to, I guess, not like to give a guy like that credit, if that makes sense. He's very passionate. His story of getting back into the All Blacks is actually really impressive as well, with the fact that he re-injured himself but kept on going to get back in there. The man does a 10K as his warm down. I do a 10 metre sprint and then I'm done for the day. So I'll go with TJ as that starting 9. And at the starting 10, I have got Damian McKenzie there. Now, I know a lot of people after the final are also like, maybe McKenzie isn't quite the 10 we wanted, but I do feel like those are the rare occurrences. Overall for the season, he has been extremely strong. 177 points throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season, 750 metres carried, 44 defenders beaten, 9 clean breaks, 6 try assists. The man has been everywhere for the Chiefs, and he was one of the big reasons that they made it as far in the competition as they did, alongside, of course, Cortez Ratima. Maybe we see Chief as the 9-10 combo and the All Blacks starting 15. But now moving on to the centres. We will go with the number 12. I have gone with the other vice-captain, Jordie Barrett. I feel like he is the easier of the 2 positions to decide on. He's had 5 tries throughout the season, 25 defenders beaten. He's made 121 tackles as well for the Hurricanes. So very handy on defence as well as attack, and also offers that big boot, whether that's from 50 metres out off the kicking tee or just with that torpedo kick downfield, which might be quite handy up against a side like England, who, yes, they have been doing a bit more running in some of their recent games, but they may still go back to that kicking orientated performance if things aren't quite going to plan. But that is why I'd have Jordie Barrett in the centre channel. 13's tricky because you've got a guy in Rico Ioane who overall hasn't had his best Super Rugby Pacific season, but he's done it in the past for the All Blacks and has a very good record for the ABs. You've got Billy Proctor, who had a very strong Super Rugby Pacific season, but probably doesn't get the nod ahead of Rico because of Rico's experience, but he would partner very well with Jordie Barrett. And then you've got Anton Leonard-Brown, who debatably had his best ever Super Rugby Pacific season throughout 2024, but they've probably picked him as an inside centre for this All Blacks lineup, even though he's been playing 13 throughout the regular season. So if you're talking about form, you'd almost go Anton Leonard-Brown 12, Billy Proctor 13, but I don't think that's the combo that they will go with. I've actually gone with Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane here, but I would like to see them switch it up a little bit in that 13 jersey. I think Rieko at the moment, he has to find his form. He hasn't played a bad season, by the way. He's had 364 metres carried, 3 try assists. He didn't score a single try throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season, which is incredibly impressive when you look at some of the other numbers that other Blues players, like Ofa Tuangafasi scored 6. Rieko did not cross the try line once. Now, of course, very different scenarios. Ofa Tuangafasi often getting that ball from a rolling maul, but even in open play, Ofa's been able to cross the try line. But yeah, I think the combo that they may look at might just be Barrett and Ioane in the midfield once again. But now moving on to the back three. Number 11, if his rib is all right, I am going with Caleb Clarke. I feel like that final proved a lot of people wrong, even though, he's never been the most popular player, it would seem. Caleb Clarke, he went to the Sevens a while ago, which took him out of All Blacks contention. A lot of people looked at what he did last year, said he wasn't good enough. Came through pre-season, lost a little bit of weight, upped his work rate, and just seems to be a whole different player than what we saw in 2023 throughout the season. Now, I'm not sure if this is including the final either, but he's got 10 tries to his name. He might be up to 13 now if that final was included. 155 carries, so doing a lot of work. 1,230 metres carried, 51 defenders beaten, 23 clean breaks, the most out of any player in the Super Rugby Pacific competition. He's been on fire out on that left wing, and he's also been very strong under the high ball, mainly from those kickoffs, and that could be a very handy thing to have up the sleeve for the All Blacks. But yeah, very underrated season because a lot of people still don't rate him. They say that his defence is the thing that lets him down, but throughout that All Blacks squad announcement live stream that we did, we compared his stats. He's got better tackling than Mark Talia. He's got better tackling than Amoni Narawa. He's got better tackling than Rieko Ioane, than Ruben Love, than Sean Stevenson. All these guys that are also jockeying for those same positions in that back three. Caleb Clarke had better numbers than all of them, tackling in the 80s for this Super Rugby Pacific season. So yeah, I'll go with Caleb Clarke as the number 11, definitely because of that high ball ability that he does offer to the side. Now out on the other wing, I have gone with Sevu Reece. So mainly throughout that Crusader season, he was playing on the left wing. Of course, though, we know that he can play on the right throughout the season. Got 12 tries, 40 defenders beaten, 23 offloads. They love offloading these wingers here from New Zealand. But the big thing that put him a little bit ahead of someone like a Mark Talia or an Amoni Narawa, I believe, is his high ball ability. We've got to remember, England are more of a kicking team than some of the sides that we've witnessed these guys play throughout Super Rugby Pacific. And Mark Talia, in the last maybe 5 or so weeks, if there's even an ounce of rain that is falling, that man's handling seems to completely go down the drain. Comparing him and Sevu Reece, 15 handling errors for Mark Talia compared to the 5 of Sevu Reece. He's also given away less penalties, Sevu Reece, and he's played 2 less games, but that is because, of course, his side didn't quite do as well as he would have liked, but he was still one of the standouts for the Crusaders. Razor probably has a bit of a soft spot for him as well, so I would go with Sevu Reece as my number 14, and that leaves 15, which leaves us in a tough position because this number 15 jersey is weird. They've got one guy out of their back three who can play it, and that is Stephen Perofeta. They've got 2 fly halves in Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie who have both played 15, but have both been put down as fly halves in the squad announcement. So that really only leaves you with Stephen Perofeta, but I've actually gone with Beauden Barrett here as my starting 15 for the All Blacks. The reason behind that is I think up against England, I feel like that versatility that Stephen Perofeta can offer you off the bench later on in the game. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do an Ian Foster and give him 30 seconds like they did in Stephen Perofeta's debut, but I do think that the last 20 or 30 minutes is when we could really see Stephen Perofeta doing well throughout the contest for the ABs. Beauden Barrett, though, they might actually look at him as the guy who comes off the bench rather than starting. Maybe you chuck Stephen Perofeta into the deep end after a great season that he's had for the Blues. But yeah, I'd go with Beauden Barrett for the first test match up against England. And then I feel like that is when we'll start to see Stephen Perofeta start to take that jersey on, maybe up against England in the second, and then probably that match up against the Fijians that has taken place in the USA. But I am still pretty undecided on the starting XV for the All Blacks, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I should mention this is different to our prediction that myself and Rugby Itch will be doing a little bit closer to the first test match, which will involve us predicting what we think Razor will go with as a starting lineup and reserves. This one is more of just a fun one to see how everyone's starting 15s compare heading into the match, who everyone feels are the players they would like to see take to the field up against the English. Now, I will mention there are about 10 changes that I wouldn't mind seeing in my starting XV, or I wouldn't be opposed to, such as, like I said, Ethan de Groot starting at 1 to keep that chemistry with Tyrell Lomax. Feel like that would be a pretty smart move. Tui Pelotu maybe is just going to be a 4 alongside Scott Barrett. So then we might see Tupavai go into that number 5 jersey. Finau could get switched for Blackadder. Ioane could get switched for Proctor. Beauden Barrett at 15 could change. There are a lot of guys that could get switched around in the starting XV. But do let me know, like I said, in the comments down below. Also, do let me know, do you think the All Blacks will win this series up against the English? Of course, England having that warm-up game up against Japan last week. New Zealand don't have one, but they did have that Super Rugby Pacific final recently to help get their players into some prime form. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all for the next one.